Overwatch 2 is finally taking the balance into the right direction, although there's still some debate that they're refusing to go back on some things, but it's a step in the right direction is still a step in the right direction. So let's get started. There was a development blog by Alec Dawson. He's the lead hero designer. He's the leader of the balance team at the moment for Overwatch 2. And he was the one that took over the director's take on the Overwatch, Blizzard forums and things like that. And he basically spoke about the balance of the game. So I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to read it. I will leave a link to it down in the comment section below in case you've missed it. The major things to take away from it is that he spoke about Sombra, Roadhog, as well as some of the changes that they made to Orisa and Bastion that they're going to be reverting, right? So that's the TLDR of it. However, we're going to talk about more in depth of what their philosophy is and if this is the right mindset to have or the wrong mindset to have, right? So let's get started. They open up the article by saying, Ilyari and the safe side of strong. Let's start with Ilyari. Going into Ilyari's launch, our slogan was safe side of strong. We want hero releases to be impactful. It's best for the game for a number of reasons, but most importantly, it creates a change throughout the meta. An impactful hero can shift other heroes' viability and create new and unique team comps, and an unimpactful hero can feel as if the game never went to a new season. Now, this is a good mindset to have because Lifeweaver basically did nothing into the game until this season in particular, right? Like, he had to get so many buffs to even feel impactful. On the other side of things, Ilyari actually was the opposite version of this, where the second she came into the game, she was so strong that she did turn things around. And at the moment, she's the highest pick rate support, right? So how are they going to deal with that? So they basically go on to say that making a new hero feel impactful on launch is challenging because they're asking us as a player to choose between a hero and their overall potential versus a hero and the hundreds and thousands of hour that we spent with them. So like pick the new hero that you may need to like learn and spend time with, or pick somebody that is like you've already had so much time. Or you pick a hero that's like your comfort pick. Like, why would I play Ilyari when I can just play Mercy and I know I'm good at Mercy, but on Ilyari I have to go through her learning curve, right? That's basically what they tried to say over here. Now, the a bit of a weird situation here is that them sharing this mindset also explains why they're putting all these like button press abilities that kind of do the thing for you. It's to try and mitigate this process of moving from older heroes to newer heroes, that they feel easier to play and that they're able to do a lot of everything, right? But this is wrong, right? So over here, Alec Dawson goes on to say, to mitigate the friction between, moving from a hero that you know to a new hero, we generally continue to aim for the safe side of strong with the new hero releases and tune them where necessary. In situations where the hero's kits can contain mechanics we describe as more quote unquote sharp or potentially polarizing, let's say we were to release Widowmaker again, we may need to exercise more caution with this approach. So they basically said that if a character comes out and we already expect that character to be strong, we should have an idea of what we need to approach about that character, right? Like, this is a good mindset to have because this also means that with Ilyari coming out, they kind of knew where her strength was going to lie and they're ready to deal with it. Now let's go on to read, right? He said, we aimed to make sure Ilyari was powerful and we were happy to see that she was very impactful, right? But it's important to evaluate where that power is coming from. I really, really hate this phrasing here. Before we go on to read what he has said, I hate this phrasing here because he said something like this for Genji as well, not realizing that people don't like to play against Nanoblade, right? And this theme of, well, this is what players don't like, but the development team thinks that no, this is what you don't like, is a big disconnect. So I really hope that this doesn't continue in the next paragraph. Otherwise, I'm going to be very disappointed, right? So Alec Dawson goes on to say a lot of her initial power was wrapped up in her healing pylon and her lethality. That is correct. She has a lot of power in the healing pylon and her ability to duel things, right? Despite its potency, the healing pylon itself can feel invisible throughout a match due to its fire and forget automated healing. So you just put it up and you forget about it, right? It was one of the first things we tuned, and it can create situations that can resemble a stalemate. Next, breaking through the line of defense to shoot the pylon can be a difficult task. It shouldn't be that hard to kill once you are shooting at it though. So this is very true that sometimes if a team is good or Ilyari has good positioning with her pylon, it can feel almost impossible to deal with it, and it feels like they have a sixth player on their team, right? Then they go on to say that as a passive ability, it doesn't have an immediate impact on the satisfaction of other elements in her kit, like her primary and secondary fire. Going forward, we're going to iterate on Ilyari's balance while making sure she doesn't feel muted. We think there's still a good amount of room there, and we'll be making adjustment to her secondary fire healing in Season 7. Okay, I don't like some of the wording over here, because while I understand that Ilyari is supposed to be the turret healer, but her potential as a support comes from, obviously her lethality in terms of how she can dual characters. What I don't like about this like mindset now, and this is what I was kind of afraid of, is they think that they need to somewhat nerf the character from the perspective of player agency, right? And instead keep the I do the job for you ability strong. They need to understand that people don't like that. Like, if anything, I hope that this is a miswording, or maybe they didn't communicate their points properly, is I hope that they nerf Pylon further and let it be an extra supportive layer in her kit. Then you can adjust the cooldown and things like that, and put more emphasis on Ilyari making decisions with her right click and her left click, which is basically her shooting or her healing, right? So that way she feels more balanced, because it's all about player agency, right? Somewhat similar to what 𝐒𝐿𝐿 is like right now, right? Otherwise, it's just going to always be this case of, well, you put the pylon up, like it does the job for you, and you can go off, take an off angle, and like, eliminate things, right? And of course, that's not always the right way to play the game, right? In a first person shooter, we should always put player agency over an ability that does something for you. It's become something that people don't like, right? We didn't like it in Overwatch 1, we didn't like it in Overwatch 2. We need to understand this if we want to have a healthy game, right? Otherwise, people will always just turn away from this game and go play the other shooters that are out there, and we will continuously watch this game die. Like, it's the poison that you have to pick, right? And the very few niche amount of people that will enjoy this style of gameplay, I'm sorry, but there's just not enough of those people that can sustain this game, because that's what happened to Overwatch 1, right? So if we want Overwatch 2 to be a success, we need to understand that keeping the game in a healthy state, where player agency, the ability for the player to make decisions, has an impact in the game, needs to be the priority, right? Anyways, moving on, he speaks about layers of balance. So, and I quote, now let's talk about some recent balance changes and how we're approaching our start of season and mid-season updates, right? So I'm going to kind of slide over this one, because this one is like a little bit less relevant. It's some good mindset in there, but you can read it, right? He basically talks about Soldier 76 and how they wanted him to feel a little bit stronger, and then they tuned his numbers down just a little bit, just to keep, like, he's still decent, but um they wanted him to be in a better spot. And then they also talked about, like, well, what is happening with our, like, um like, how do we get a hero to feel even better, right? And he talks about Zaria, that we wanted to incentivize team play through Zaria more, and that's why they buffed her ally bubble and not her personal bubble, right? So it can encourage some less selfish playstyles, right? So that's kind of what he talks about over there, that how can we change player mindsets by buffing different parts of the kit, which I think is interesting, right? Like, I think that's interesting. It reinforces team play, and that's what Overwatch is, right? Now, going into Season 6, this is where the juice comes in, right? Bastion, Orisa, Torb, Sombra, and Roadhog. These are the main 5 heroes to keep an eye out for, right? Now, why am I saying that? First of all, Bastion, Orisa, Torb, pretty much all 3 of them have been the biggest problems in this season. And the number one thing that we've learned is these 3 characters can never ever be allowed to be meta, right? Nor should they be in a position where they can compete even, right? Because they're extremely cheesy, they're extremely, like, all over the place. In fact, this is what Alec Dawson says: the standout amongst them has become Bastion. He's been succeeding at all the ranks and is higher than we would like at the highest levels of play, where he has a 55% unmirrored win rate. Bastion in the highest levels of play is so powerful now that he has a 55% win rate. I think this is the highest that any hero from the DPS roster has ever gone, right? You like maybe, I think, 60%, give or take. I can't think of anybody in the DPS that has gone that high, but this is the first time I've seen a character go this high, and that's just because they just shut down at the other tank's ability to play the game, and it's not fun from a game design perspective, right? Or gameplay perspective. So they were like, we were happy with the added reliability to his primary fire and tactical grenade, but we're going to remove his armor repair with transformation into configuration assault that makes Bastion difficult to kill. Also, they kind of hotfixed this in already, like Bastion's already been nerfed. This was supposed to come in Season 7, but they just, they understand how terrible Bastion can be, so they just kind of gutted him right away. Now, does this kill Bastion? I'm not entirely sure, to be honest with you, but it's a step in the right direction. I feel like Bastion should be a lot more vulnerable now, right? So, other things that Alec Dawson says is some other adjustments is that we are reverting or pulling back at the start of Season 7 Urisa's fortified damage reduction, Torbjorn's primary fire recovery time, and May's changes that were introduced in Season 5. On those reverts to May, it's important to recognize that the changes she got wasn't resulting in improved gameplay. If anything, what happened was because of that goal of trying to reintroduce some of her previous mechanics, it resulted in that hero becoming more frustrating to play against, especially from a tank's point of view, because it wasn't more engaging or effective to play. It was trying to strip player agency. So I'm really happy to see that they're understanding this about these heroes that we see mentioned: Bastion, Orisa, Torb, May, and Sombra and Roadhog. The problem with these heroes is that they take away another person's ability in some way, shape, or form to play the game, and nobody likes that, right? So moving on, he says, finally, we're going to be looking to reveal our planned rework. So finally, we find out what's going on with Sombra and Roadhog. So for Sombra, he says that this is our plan for the rework. It's to make Sombra more committal when engaging. So the idea here is that we want Sombra to stay in a fight and duel rather than just run away. That's the why the word committal or committed can be used over here, right? In her engagements. And number 2 and 3 is increase the active feeling throughout her kit and uphold her hacker identity and playstyle. So what does that mean? Let's talk about that, right? So increase the active feel throughout her kit. It just means that more often than not, especially at low elos, your Sombra players are basically perma-invis. I believe they've already admitted that perma-invis is going to be leaving the game, which is really good. Perma-invis was horrible for the game. People at lower levels of play never understood how to play Sombra, and people at high levels of play abused it to no degree, right? And then the final thing is uphold her current hacker identity and playstyle. Now, I'm a little bit worried over here. I really hope that hack as an ability doesn't get buffed, but rather they help her kind of stay in these fights and commit to her duels, right? So looking forward to Sombra's rework, but I'm a little bit wary because Sombra is again one of those characters where her main idea is to strip your ability to play the game, and if she becomes viable, having Sombra be like hard meta for season 7 is going to be really scary, right? Again, we will just go from a character like Bastion to Sombra, who is all about, well, you cannot play the game. So I really hope hack as an ability is very carefully assessed, right? Otherwise, what was the point of the Sombra rework? It was useless, right? Finally, the last thing to talk about today is Roadhog, right? So this is what Mr. Dawson has to say. Mr. Dawson says Roadhog is undergoing the finishing touches for Season 7's mid-season patch. Oh my god. Okay, so Sombra's rework comes in the beginning, Roadhog comes midway through, right? So the broad goals for the rework are they will increase his ability to protect his team and claim space. They will maintain his overall identity and playstyle, so most likely he will still have his hook and cook combos, and then move some of his power around so that his effectiveness isn't so tied to his one-shot potential. So what's going on is most likely they will put, power in some of the new things. So another thing to also note is that both Sombra and Roadhog are getting a new ability, right? So for Roadhog, this new ability will most likely have something to do with protecting his team, and for Sombra, it's most likely going to have something to do with her when she's engaged in a fight, right? Because this is where these two characters, from an individualistic perspective and not a team comp perspective, this is where they kind of fall off, right? So what are my overall thoughts at the state of the game right now and where they're taking the balance, right? Overall, I think they understood the major problems with characters like, the ones that I've been talking about for a while now, that May, Torbjorn, Bastion, like these type of characters, like they understood that these characters are unhealthy for the game, Orisa included, and they're moving them into a state where it's like, okay, let them be niche picks that work on some maps that can surprise people, but don't let them be viable, right? Like we have to keep the game to an area where the higher skill heroes can outplay them and outpace them, right? We can never allow something like that to happen. Otherwise, like the problem is that it hurts the tank role the most when you can just pick a character and just delete the tank, right? It hurts that player the most more than it does the other DPS and supports, where supports can just immortality themselves and always stay alive, and DPS can, well, just take better angles and play around that person. Like it's the tank that really has to tank that type of damage or unfair ability that they have to play against, right? Which is exactly why I'm worried about the state of Sombra. Like I'm excited to see what they do with her. I hope they try to enforce more of like this assassin playstyle, and from the perspective like, she's just, okay, maybe not assassin playstyle, but like this, like, like this, I want her to have this identity where instead of always running away, she's more about chasing targets, right? So like a Genji type character, right? So I love Genji, so if they move Sombra to that direction, I might actually start picking up Sombra more, because I just really dislike her current playstyle. It's really boring. Nobody likes it. and it's just not fun to play, right? In my opinion, at least. So if you like it, it is what it is. They're changing it because it's horrible at low levels of play and high levels of play. So there's nothing you can do about it. It is what it is, right? As for Roadhog, I like the fact that, well, he still doesn't have his one-shot potential, right? I like the fact that they're moving his power around. I do want to see what they mean by this. Like, does this mean his hook might have some more power? Will his hook go longer ranges? Will you be able to disposition somebody and not pull them towards you, rather move them away? Like, what is going on, right? I really, really wish they just kind of overall just told us what's coming from here so we could be excited, but I guess they want to save that for the trailer videos and things like that. So, okay, fine. Let's give them some time. The season's about to finish in a few weeks anyway. So, looking forward to seeing what the balance team has to offer. At the moment, there's a step in the right direction, but I cannot deny that there are some things that they've said that has made me cautious that, okay, you understand some things, but you also don't understand some things. And we need to make you understand some things if we want the game to stay healthy, right? So with that being said, that is it for this video. If you want to support the channel literally for free, you can do that by hitting the subscribe button and clicking like. It helps with the algorithm and stuff, and I can get this video to go out to more people, right? You can leave a comment explaining your thoughts down below. What are you thinking about the current state of balance? The balance patch that's coming up, and do you think it's a step in the right direction, or do you think it's bad, right? With that being said, I will see you guys in the next one.